Hello, welcome to Dimension Quest. In one of my previous videos, I started setting up a home lab environment using VMware Workstation 17 Pro running on Fedora Workstation 17. In this week's video, I will focus on getting a vCenter appliance installed here on my VMware Workstation. The version of vCenter is going to be the latest as of this recording, that's 8.0C. So the first thing we'll have to do is get the files downloaded from VMware's Customer Connect. As you can see here, I already have the ISO image downloaded. I'll provide the URL to VMware's download site in the description of this video. All right, let's proceed. Now we can't install vCenter Server from this ISO image. We have to open it up, and I'll just open it with the disk image mounter here. You can see here that VMware VCSA has been mounted. And under the VCSA folder, we can find the OVA file. Now, normally you would just import an OVA into a system in order to get things deployed, but there's a little bit of a glitch with this that if you attempt to do this, you'll end up with an error message. So in order to avoid that particular issue, which comes up in phase 2 of the vCenter appliance deployment, we are going to copy this file over into our downloads. So let's go under downloads and just stick it in files here. And we'll paste that. Now what we'll have to do is convert the OVA to an OVF file so that we can modify the OVF and fix this particular error. So let's go ahead and switch over to our terminal. And we'll list our files here. We can see that we have the OVA right here. So let's get this converted to an OVF. There we go. So we simply type OVF tool, the name of our source OVA, and the name of our OVF file that we're going to convert it to. So let's just make this name a little bit nicer. Yeah, that should be fine. We'll hit enter. We'll give that a moment to complete. Okay, once that's completed, we can see that we have some extra files in here, our OVF, VMDKs, and our MF. That's our manifest file. Now, since we're going to be modifying the OVF, we're going to need to delete the manifest file. So we'll go ahead and delete that permanently. There we go. And the reason that we have to delete that is because it has checksums and information in there that if that file is present and it is read by whatever you're importing to, whether it's vCenter, VMware Workstation, vCloud Director, whatever the case is, if that MF file is present and the other files don't match their original content, then you'll have an error. Now, since we are going to modify this OVF, we do not want that manifest file present. So let's go ahead and open our OVF file. And I will use Visual Studio Code. All right, so the thing that we need to look for is the guestinfo.cis.upgrade.import.directory. Now here where it says OVF user configurable, we need to change that from false to true. So let's go ahead and change that. Save the file, and we can close out of our Visual Studio Code. Okay, so now we should be ready to do our import. Let's switch back over to VMware Workstation. Now, before we actually do the import, you need to decide whether you're going to use DHCP or a static IP with a DNS entry for your vCenter Server appliance. Now, we do have pfSense running in this lab environment, which does have the DNS resolver set up. Let's go ahead and get logged in there, and we will create an entry for our VCSA. So we need to go under Services, DNS Resolver, and scroll down to the bottom where we have host overrides. Now we're going to add a record here. For the host, we want to give it just the host name, VCSA. The domain is home.arpa. That's what we set up when we first set up our pfSense appliance. If you chose a different domain name here, make sure that you use the same domain that you used when you set up pfSense. The IP address I want for my vCenter Server appliance is 192.168.110.22. That's going to be the management LAN segment that we created in the previous video. And the description of this, we'll just call this vCenter Server Appliance. Scroll down to the bottom and click on Save. And then we need to make sure we apply changes. Okay, the changes have been applied successfully. So let's open up a terminal. And we will try doing an NS lookup on vcsa.home.arpa. And we can see that it is resolving to 192.168.110.22, just what we set up. Great. So now that we have our DNS entry ready, we can go ahead and import the OVA file that we've modified for use with VMware Workstation Pro. So under VMware Workstation, we'll click on File, Open, and then we're going to browse to our Downloads Files folder, and we will select the OVA file that we have modified. We'll click Open, accept the terms for the license agreement, and click Next. Provide a name for your VM. I'm just going to call it VCSA. Make sure that you have the correct location selected for where the virtual machine will reside in your file system. Click Next. And since this is a small environment just running in Workstation, we're not going to have a lot of ESX hosts here, so we want to just go with tiny vCenter server with embedded PSC. Click Next. Now, you need to pay close attention here. I missed this the first couple times I tried running through here. I populated the fields here and I simply clicked Import. What I neglected to do was click on each of these over here to set those configuration settings. Now, ideally, I would really prefer that this had a Next button that would progress us through each of these steps, but that's not the case, so this is your warning. Okay, if you're not sure what you need to put in any of these, we've got the little light bulbs here on the side. Just mouse over and stay steady, and you'll see the tooltip appear. So here we want to do IPv4. And for host network mode, you can mouse over that. So you have three choices: static, DHCP, or autoconf. We're going to go with static. The IP address is going to be what we specified earlier, 192.168.110.22. Host network prefix. So this is like your /24/32/16 kind of deal. We can see that here, 0 through 32 for IPv4. And we are using a /24 network here, so we'll just put 24 for the length. Our host network default gateway is 192.168.110.1, and the DNS server is the same. Host network identity. I'm not sure what that is. Network identity or fully qualified domain name services should use when advertising themselves. We'll just go ahead and leave this blank. I believe this is an optional field. Otherwise, based on the tooltip, I would put in vcsa.home.arpa. Now, before we continue on, we want to make sure that we go through these other fields here. So let's click over to SSO configuration. Directory password, I'm going to use our lovely VMware Hands-On Labs password, simply because I have typed it so many times. VMware1 exclamation mark, and we'll go to system configuration and we'll do the same thing there. Upgrade configuration, we're not doing an upgrade, so we can disregard everything on this screen. Miscellaneous, I'm not going to bother with anything here. Networking properties, domain name and domain search path. Here we're going to enter home.arpa in each of these. And again, make sure that the domain that you enter here is the same one that you set up in your pfSense if you're following along in my series. And finally, we'll go ahead and click Import. Now, something to be aware of. Once this VM is imported, it's going to power on immediately. And there was not anything in that import wizard that allowed us to select which network we want to attach the NIC to. And it's really important that we make sure that the NIC is attached to our management LAN segment that we created in our first video. So as soon as this VM powers on, we'll need to right-click on the tab, select Settings, go to the NIC, and make sure that it gets to the correct segment. So keep a close eye on this. Okay, now that it's powered up, we want to hit Settings, scroll down to Network Adapter, select our LAN, make sure Management is selected, and hit Save. There we go. I got that just in time. The network stuff hasn't started up quite yet. It did take a couple minutes for all the services to get started up, but we can see that our IP address is showing in here. And a bunch of other stuff is starting up and overlaying that initial login screen. So at this point, we can go ahead and switch back over to our Ubuntu VM, where we have our browser loaded. And we'll just open up Terminator here real quick and confirm that we can actually ping the vCenter Server Appliance. If you're unable to ping it and you did see that IP address showing over on the VCSA tab, then you might want to recheck your LAN settings by right-clicking, selecting Settings, and just verifying that you do indeed have your network adapter attached to the correct LAN segment, which should be the same segment that your client VM is on. In my case, it's the Ubuntu 2204 VM. So let's go ahead and try pinging that. Okay, I am getting ping responses, so that's good. I'll go ahead and clear that and minimize our Terminator out of the way. Let's open up a new tab in our browser and we'll try accessing the UI. Now we do want to make sure that we specify https:// and the host name that we've specified. In my case, it's vcsa.home.arpa. And since we are still in the setup process, we're going to access the VAMI on port 5480 and hit enter. Now, if you've done a few prior setups in your testing, your first load up may show up like this with 0 unknown error. That's just because of some caching. So just hit refresh there. And this is actually what you most likely see if this is your first time walking through. Now, I am using Firefox, so it gives me the potential warning here because it is using a self-signed certificate. Click on Advanced, scroll down, and accept the risk and continue. And we'll need to log in. So the username is root for the VAMI interface, and the password is whatever you specified. In my case, it is VMware1! Click Login. And we can see a little bit of a message in the background there saying that the vCenter Server 8 has been successfully installed, and there's some additional steps that need to be completed. So we're still in stage 1 where vCenter is doing the RPM installation, so we need to let that finish. Okay, stage 1 has completed. That took a while. And let's go ahead and move up into full screen for our VMware Workstation. There we go. So since this is a clean install, we're going to go with Setup. And we can see that stage 1 is complete. So in order to continue with stage 2, we'll click on Next. Confirm that all the settings have carried over from our initial configuration. Time synchronization, I want to enable that with NTP servers, and I'm going to use my pfSense as the source. SSH access, I like to have that available, so I'm going to go ahead and activate that. Okay, everything here looks good. I'll click on Next. Now for SSO configuration, I'm not sure why it's defaulting to root there, but we want to change that to vsphere.local. I just use vsphere.local because that's been the default for so many years. I'm comfortable with that. You can have it whatever you like, but I have found that it's good to just keep this as vsphere.local. That way, if you tie in your vCenter server to an Active Directory domain, you can then use whatever your correct local domain is. Now for the password, I'm going to use the handy dandy VMware One Bang. Let's make sure I didn't do any kind of fat finger typos there. Yep, looks good. And since this is a test environment, I don't care that you see this password. This is a pretty well documented and public password, so it's okay. And again, since this is just a miniature lab environment, I'm not going to bother joining the CEIP, but I certainly recommend that you do use that in your production environments. Go ahead and click Next. And one final review. Everything here looks good, so I'll go ahead and click Finish. Click OK. And I don't need to save that. Now, the previous 2 times that I had attempted this, stage 2 got all the way up to about 86% or so, and then it failed due to that little OVF hack that we had to do. So hopefully we'll get all the way through this time. I'll go ahead and fast forward. Okay, so that was kind of weird. That was not really progressing, and then it just logged me out. So I guess once you get to that point, go ahead and refresh, log back in, and make sure everything's looking good. All right, everything does look good here. Let's click through each of these things on the side here. Access. Got all of those activated. Networking. This is looking good. Firewall. Time. Current time, April 9th, 7:54. UTC, okay, that looks good. Mode, deactivated. Why is that deactivated? Let's go ahead and edit that. That's supposed to be set for NTP. Put my NTP server back in there, save. Okay, maybe my pfSense isn't providing NTP right now. Let's try pool.ntp.org. Okay, that worked. So I guess I need to recheck my NTP settings for pfSense. I'll do that some other time. For now, we'll just focus on our VCSA. Check services, startup type. Let's sort here so we can see automatic. Let's see, everything automatic looks like it has started. Yep, okay, that's looking good. Update. Last checked April 9th at 3:55, so that was just a minute ago. That should be good. Administration, password expires. I do not want my password expiring every 90 days for a test lab environment. Let's click on Edit, and we will change the yes to a no and save that. Okay, syslog. This is fine. Backup. I won't bother with backup right now, but we can set that up with FTPS and all these other protocols here. So I think we're all set for right now. All right, so again, this is the VAMI user interface here where we do most of our management stuff and our updates. Let's go ahead and take a look at the front end of the interface. So we'll go to vcsa.home.arpa. We'll clear off the 5480 and we'll just hit enter. Now I'm intentionally going to this URL rather than putting the /UI there because I want to be able to get my C8 certificate from the vCenter server. Here we go. And we have download trusted root CA certificates. I will save link as. I'll put that under, let's see, downloads. Yeah, that should be fine. Show all downloads, and let's show it in folder. We will open this up, extract here. Certs, Lin. Okay, so we've got our certificates there. I think actually if we go to certs win, yeah, there we go. We've got our CRT and our CRL. So what I want to do here is, I've done this in one of my previous videos, but we'll go ahead and do it here as well. We want to get our browser to support the CA certificate so that when we go to vCenter server, we have a proper lock showing here without the warning. And also by trusting the CA certificate from our vCenter server, any ESX host that we add to the vCenter server and issue certificates to from vCenter will also be trusted. So let's go into our Firefox browser here and go into settings. We'll just search for cert. There we go. View certificates. Authorities, that's what we want. And we're going to import from downloads. Certs, I like going to Win because they have the CRT file right there. And we want this to be used for both of those. We want to trust it for anything. So we'll go ahead and click OK and click OK. All right, so now that I've imported that certificate, I'm just going to go ahead and close out of my browser all the way. There we go. I can close my Finder, or I can close my folders as well. Now we'll reopen our Firefox browser and we'll go to our VCSA. Get rid of 5480 and put /UI. There we go. We've got our log. We didn't have any kind of a warning here. That's good. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at our connection. There we go. This is looking good. More information. View certificate. All right, this all looks good. So if we go ahead and come back to our vCenter login, the login here is administrator at vsphere.local with VMware1 ! As our password. Click login. I'll go ahead and save that. Okay, this is looking good. There are expired or expiring licenses in your inventory. Well, since this is a fresh install and we have not installed any licenses yet, this is an expected notification. Let's go ahead and click on Manage Licenses, though, to check out what we have available to us. There we go, Evaluation License. Let's expand that. There we go. So I have until June 7th to use evaluation mode here. And it's April 9th right now. So that's what, about 60 days-ish. That's plenty of time to do some testing, configuration, some learning, doing some little labs. But I do have my vExpert license that I can plug in here. If you don't have vExpert status, then I certainly recommend looking at the vMug Advantage program for getting your licensing. If you only need to work for less than 60 days, just trying something out, then this evaluation license is probably sufficient for you. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up getting vCenter Server Appliance installed and working under VMware Workstation Pro 17 on Linux. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my content, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video, and hit that little bell icon if you want to be notified the next time I release a video. Thanks and have a great week.